Hello. Welcome to my channel. I'm Interweb Studios, and today we are going to listen to some satisfying petty revenge stories I found on Reddit. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment your opinion on these petty revenge stories. With that out of the way, sit back and enjoy. I work from home full-time and rarely drive unless I'm grocery shopping or out for an appointment. In my complex, there are non-reserved spots and reserved spots in the underground garage, all of which are not assigned. As long as you have a reserved sticker on your vehicle, any of the reserved spots, which are all labeled reserved, are fair game. I have a non-reserved sticker because it's $40 cheaper than the reserved pass. I was coming back from an appointment and turned into my neighbor's reserved spot so that I could back my car into the open, non-reserved spot behind me. Lo and behold, male Karen in his rusty 2007 RAV4 starts honking at me for being in his spot, telling me that I can't park there because I don't have a reserved sticker. I told him I was only backing out. I probably should have let it go, but his Karen-ness pissed me off so much. As I was getting on the elevator, I quickly realized he only wanted to park there was because it was right next to the elevator. A light bulb went off in my head and I made my way to the rental office, its insane building, and asked to upgrade my parking pass. It's an extra $40 I'll be shelling out, but it's worth the petty revenge. I'm waiting for him to leave for work tomorrow so I can move my car into his spot and leave it there for God knows how long. There are perks to being fully remote.
This is the pettiness I look for. This is the kind of petty that I cuddle with and nurture and love on. You're my hero, OP.
Several years ago I lived in a tower apartment complex. Parking was ample, provided you paid, but there were no assigned spots. You can imagine this led to a fair amount of jockeying for the primo spots. Now personally I don't mind walking. I'd rather have reserved a spot farther away because I know it'll be there and I don't have to waste time searching. So I'd always head as far back as possible and take whatever I found. 6 months in and some contractor, Comcast etc. had an oversized truck with orange cones around it for a couple days. I thought nothing of it, after all I was parked far away from the primo spots, which is where a Comcast truck should park too. But after a few days they left only for a single cone to be left behind blocking a spot. That's weird, I thought, seeing the single cone clearly labeled Comcast placed in the middle of a spot. They must be coming back next week. But they never returned. Instead, the spot that had previously held the cone would always be occupied by a black Audi. And it was easy to tell because the Audi had a personalized plate. Now, as a fan of reserved spots, I didn't mind. If all this person wanted was certainty, we could have been parking neighbors forever. But this particular person would use their cone to upgrade the spot when they could. So if they saw a better open spot when they left, they'd toss the cone down and return and take the spot in the evening. Well, you can imagine within a few weeks they were almost at the best spot right next to the trash room and the elevator up. But I'd been watching their climb. So I waited until the day they finally had their cone in the absolute best spot. And during prime parking hours, no less. Did I take their spot? No. Of course not. That's a good way to get your car keyed. Instead, I drove past it on my route towards the back, parked, and walked to the elevator. Glancing around, I made sure the coast was clear. I simply grabbed the cone, walked into the trash room, and tossed it in the dumpster. As you might imagine, that primo spot was taken by someone else. And I got to see the black Audi with the personalized plates parked back near me. Their ire, I'm sure, directed at the person in their spot, not at some rando who had watched their climb and fall from the back.
Love it, but I think I would have incrementally moved the cone back over time. Say they move the cone up 3 spaces, move it back 2 or 4, always backwards. Most people would convince themselves that they weren't as close as they thought they were. Conniving.
Once I worked at a company with a garage under the office. We had a garage manager. He wanted to guide cars in the morning to the parking spots most far away from the door. Why? Nobody knows, since there was no good reason, but he liked it that way. To guide, he used cones and one big cone with a plate on it with an arrow to tell you which way you had to drive. One day, he forgot to put the cone with the plate on it away, and after my work was done, I walked to my car and saw it there. The manager only worked in the mornings, so he was gone by this time. I looked and nobody was there, since I worked late that day. I took the cone, with the plate, and tossed it in the backseat of my car. At home I put it in my shed and kept it for years. The next day an email was sent to everybody working in the office building if anyone had seen the cone with plate. I never spoke up, and after that we were able to park just where we'd like. Everybody happy, except the manager.
He probably had some purpose, like preventing people from driving slowly, jockeying for the best spot or something, but it's still funny that he didn't just replace the cone. Probably made him a little crazy every day after that.
Full disclosure, this was at the beginning of quarantine for most of the US. I have 2 roommates that are dating. When I first moved in with my original roommate, we were both single guys. We were good friends, and it was a lot cheaper to share a house. About 6 months after we moved in together, he moved his girlfriend in no problem. She was cool and we all got along. Flash forward a couple of months and quarantine hit. I had to work from home. They didn't, but we're still getting paid. To quote Rislash, they were constantly, passionately hugging. I have no problem with that, but she was insanely loud. I'm talking Lassie from Porky's Loud. I told them they needed to quiet down during work hours, and his exact words were, "We aren't that loud. Quit exaggerating and deal with it." Pertinent to the story is that I'm an IT help desk person, so I was on the phone a lot. One day while I was on the phone with a client, they started going at it. The client was a young female, and she heard it. She asked me if I was watching porn while helping her. I apologized and told her it was my roommate and his girlfriend. She laughed and said she understood. I finished helping, and hung up. End of story. Right, wouldn't be here if it was. The next day I get a phone call from my CTO saying a client complained because I was watching porn while on a support call. I explained the situation to him and he laughed it off. Thank goodness he was a cool boss. I told them about it, and he reiterated that she wasn't that loud, and suck it up. The revenge, a couple days later on a weekend, they started going at it again. I pulled out my phone and recorded the audio. No, I didn't keep it, so don't ask. The next morning they were both at the dining room table eating breakfast. I looked him dead in the eye and said, "You aren't loud?" and played the audio, which was recorded through our air duct. She turned white as a sheet. She apologized profusely and I haven't heard anything since. Judging from her reaction, I don't think he ever said a word to her. I think he was just proud he could make her that loud.
Always helps to let them hear themselves. They got a dose of their own medicine. What was his reaction? Do you think she genuinely wasn't aware of just how loud she was being? I would imagine he didn't even tell her about your complaint because he probably liked it, which is fine. But show respect to home is just trying to earn a living, man. Yeah, I know the type. If he ever needs an ego check, remind him some people are just loud regardless, we're just very nice.
Yesterday, Friday, I got an urgent voicemail on my personal cell phone from a lady at ARS Services insisting that I call back no later than 4:30 p.m. This was at 3 p.m. I'm an attorney and I do sometimes get time-sensitive calls and voicemail messages on my personal phone, but I had no clue what ARS means or who they are or what case they were calling about. So I call back, and it is a debt collector and they try to bully me about some credit card debt my ex-wife of 8 years has incurred with them, demanding I get a message to her. I asked them why they are calling me and leaving a message like that, and they were rude and then hung up. They wouldn't pick up when I called back. So I used an Android phone redialer app and called them through the night and left over 600 voicemails for them last night. Should be a fun Monday morning for them. Happy Monday ARS. Edit. This is in the USA, and debt collector is in New York. I looked up ARS before calling back but got so many hits it wasn't clear who was calling me, which I believe was the intent of their voicemail. Edit number 2. The app is auto redial, but there are severer.
You gotta get yourself an auto dialer with this message. Greetings, friend. Do you wish to look as happy as me? Well, you've got the power inside you right now. So, use it and send $1 to Happy Dude, 742 Evergreen Terrace, Springfield. Don't delay. Eternal happiness is just $1 away. When I was a kid, in the 1960s there was a classified ad in a comic book that simply read, "Last chance to send me your dollar," and gave a P.O. box. I heard he collected more than a few dollars. People could just fucking do anything in the 60s up. You could buy chloroform at the hardware store. Isn't it illegal for them to call you about her debt? I just looked this up. Oddly enough, if you have collections after you, they are allowed to call friends, family, neighbors, and even your boss. But they cannot say why they are calling. They can only ask for your contact info. After one call, they can't call again or they are in violation of federal law.
Waiting in line to get gas. Pumps open and the lady in front of me pulls forward to the first pump, leaving an open one in front of her. After politely asking her to pull forward and being ignored, I drive around and back up to the one in front of her. She finishes pumping before me, and as soon as I'm done I grab my lunch and start eating it on the hood. She knows what I'm doing and honks at me, but only once. I look over and we have a 10-second staring contest. A car pulls in behind her to wait in line. She can't back up now, and is stuck watching me eat my lunch and play on my phone. Guy in line behind her went in for snacks. She's trapped and I'm enjoying my lunch. I'm not generally petty, but after ignoring me, I figured she wanted to engage in a passive-aggressive battle. 14 minutes after pumping gas I'm done enjoying my lunch. She's free to go and didn't make eye contact as I went back to my door. This petty victory shouldn't feel so good, but shamefully, it does.
God, this reminds me of a similar scenario I dealt with on Monday. I went to get gas at a Costco after I was done with work, and I had probably been waiting about 10 minutes at this point. I think some dude was having issues with his card or something at the front pump in my lane, so it was taking forever. And I saw this woman right behind me cut in front of a bunch of other people in the other gas lane. I almost saw her get her karma though, because the pump she went to was on the opposite side of her fuel tank, and she struggled for a bit to get the nozzle over to her tank. And NGL I was chuckling while I watched her struggle with it. Then some dude came up and called her out for doing it, and it didn't escalate. But I could tell they were arguing about it. When the dude was walking back to his car, I asked what she had said to him about it. And he just said she kept trying to justify it by saying she was running late and other shit excuses. Like, man, if you're going to Costco to get gas, it is almost a guarantee you're gonna wait for a bit. And I can't believe people are just so entitled and think they can pull shit like that without consequence.
Well, that's the end of the video. I hoped you enjoyed. If you did, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment your opinions on these stories, and until next time. Toodles.